I
love it.
I was a nutty little dorky kid, and I would literally coming home from school. I was a latchkey kid for a while there.
Yeah.
Right around the time the show was out, so I'd come home and I'd be walking up the driveway, and I'd look around to see if anybody was walking or watching me, and I'd take 1, 2, 3, jump, just to check.
I hope you've read all those Green Lantern and Superman archives already.
I have not. Although this one came in handy. This is, and you'll see why in a second, but it has to do with the Vladimir Nabokov poem.
Oh, right. They mentioned specific issues that his kid had read,
which is really cool.
Very cool.
So yeah, we tried to talk about this last week, but technical problems prevented it.
Technical problems.
Yeah.
Running theme.
But yeah, when we were trying to pick a name for this show, I happened to stumble across an article about this long lost poem by Vladimir Nabokov called "The Man of Tomorrow's Lament."
Yeah. Oh, you've got it printed out. Good
which
for
I
you.
printed it out this time. I'm going to read it. But yeah, he's, and I found I hadn't read the original article until last night. I sent that to you.
Yeah.
This scholar named Russian scholar, Andrei Babikov, had found it in an old friend of Nabokov's house and in his own personal archives.
Oh, so yeah. It was, oh, God. Because I read the article you sent. It was another famous author whose name escapes me right now that had all that stuff.
Okay. Was it Wilson? Something Wilson?
I believe so. Was it Edmund Wilson?
Possibly, yeah.
You sent it to me, and where is it now?
I don't have my email open.
That's all right. I'm going to be an old man and just go, I know, I'm going to look at the, you talked amongst yourselves, and I'm looking now. Oh, what a lovely article. Where is it now? Okay, scrolling. I'm scrolling. You just go ahead and tell your little stories there.
Okay.
Yes, Edmund Wilson. Okay. Whew. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Woo. I think he was mostly an article writer and short story guy. Let me double check.
Okay.
Thank you, Google. You will help me. Yes, American writer and literary critic who explored Freudian and Marxist themes.
Hey.
Yeah. And that's where he was lost exploring those. They never found his body. Dumb joke. But anyway, that's where it was all uncovered. I love whenever they find stuff that, I mean, granted, if you're a famous author, yeah, maybe we should let's get the podcast rolling.
Edmund Wilson was really good friends with Nabokov, apparently, and they would send each other letters and stuff. And apparently Edmund had recommended, maybe jokingly, to Vladimir, like, why don't you write a poem about Superman? Because Vladimir had only recently moved to the States, and he was trying to publish stuff in English, and he had success over back where he came from, but in the States nobody really knew who he was yet, and the New Yorker had published a couple of his poems already, so he wrote this poem about Superman, apparently recommended by Edmund Wilson, because he had been reading Superman comics to his young son, who was 9 years old at the time. But the New Yorker rejected it.
It's interesting when it's something that not considered a failure, but it's sort of like, well, that one didn't get published. It just goes in the pile, and then it gets forgotten about for decades.
Yeah. When apparently he did perform it, at least on one occasion.
Right. Yes, that's right.
At a women's college.
At a women's college, where the thing that they were so concerned about, which is the winking, sex talk, apparently totally the audience was fine with it.
Yeah.
They're like, no big whoop.
Yeah, right.
Those ladies were with it. They were cool, those ladies.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's just amazing to find this thing. And there was a line which you'll hear here in a second. I'm going to read the poem. We'll explain why we chose this name.
It'll explain the name of our podcast. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So, The Man of Tomorrow's Lament by Vladimir Nabokov. I have to wear these glasses. Otherwise, when I caress her with my super eyes, Her lungs and liver are too plainly seen, throbbing like deep sea creatures in between dim bones. Oh, I am sick of loitering here, a banished trunk, like my namesake in Lear. But when I switch to tights, still less I prize my splendid torso, my tremendous thighs, the dark blue forelock on my narrow brow, the heavy jaw, for I shall tell you now my fatal limitation, not the pact between the worlds of fantasy and fact, which makes me shun such an attractive spot as Berchtesgaden say, and also not that little business of my draft, but worse, a tragic misadjustment and a curse. I'm young and bursting with prodigious sap. Hey. And I'm in love like any healthy chap. And I must throttle my dynamic heart, for marriage would be murder on my part. An earthquake, wrecking on the night of nights, a woman's life, some palm trees, all the lights, the big hotel, a smaller one next door, and half a dozen army trucks or more. Page 2. But even if that blast of love should spare her fragile frame, what children would she bear? What monstrous babe, knocking the surgeon down, would waddle out into the awestruck town? When 2 years old, he'd break the strongest chairs, fall through the floor, and terrorize the stairs. At 4, he'd dive into a well. At 5, explore a roaring furnace and survive. At 8, he'd ruin the longest railway line by playing trains with real ones. And at 9, release all my old enemies from jail. And then I'd try to break his head and fail. So this is why, no matter where I fly, red-cloaked, blue-hosed, across the yellow sky, I feel no thrill in chasing thugs and thieves. And gloomily, broad-shouldered Kent retrieves his coat and trousers from the garbage can and tucks away the cloak of Superman. And when she sighs, somewhere in Central Park, where my immense bronze statue looms, "Oh, Clark, isn't he wonderful?" I stare ahead and long to be a normal guy instead.
Oh,
Vladimir Nabokov, June 1942.
it's well, I know that because in that same article it mentioned that the one that he had sold, I think, to the New Yorker or whatever it was, one of the poems he did, English language poems he sold, it was also a little bit satirical, a little winky, and I think that he was like, "Oh, this is what's working for me," and so he does this one. So I know he doesn't take it too seriously, but it's amazing to me. That's 42. Superman is only 4 years in the public conscious when he writes that, and he's already pegging essential things of the character, the universe, and he's given it enough thought to where he's not just Mad Magazine, like doing a parody thing. He's actually giving some sort of emotional backstory and weight to this comic book character. It's great.
It's almost like a poem about headcanon. Like, it's a question.
Yes.
He's like, how does he do that?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and this is the thing I love, that the Andrei Babikov, who discovered this, went and did this research. The cover.
That's the exact one, yeah.
Somewhere in Central Park, immense bronze statue.
Yeah.
Yellow sky.
Yeah.
And the exact quote that Lois says.
"Oh, Clark, isn't he wonderful?"
Isn't he wonderful?
I love it.
It's so
and
cool.
That is essential. I mean, bottom line, that was the hook that the character, in addition to the power fantasy of, look at all the stuff this guy can do, but the whole love triangle where two of the people are the same guy, which is not, Siegel and Schuster didn't create that. Zorro, they stole that from Zorro, actually, which was even earlier.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, there have been plenty of Scarlet Pimpernel too, except for his wife knew that he was the Pimpernel. But yeah, there are plenty of things where it's like, oh, she's actually in love with my alter ego. Shit. But and I'm sure it's in Shakespeare as well. But still, it so awesomely works there, and the fact that he pegs that, and he mentions other stuff like the draft. He's talking about that issue famously where they address why isn't he fighting alongside the forces, the U.S. forces? And he goes in, he applies for the draft, but his X-ray vision, he's supposed to do the eye chart, and his X-ray vision reads the eye chart in the next room, so he gets it completely wrong. He looks through the eye chart to the next eye chart.
Great.
And they go, "Your eyesight's terrible." He's like, "What?" But I
that's
mean,
fantastic.
but that's also because Superman comics, and ideally, Superman comics are for kids, and so that kind of dumb plotting it warms my heart because it is so basic, and it's just like kids, of course, like going, Superman could fix the war like that, and they're like, we
Mm-hmm.
can't ignore the war, so we'll keep having Superman fight menaces here that are like, Nazi robots, but they're attacking Metropolis. I'll take care of that. Or occasionally he'll stop some submarines or something and juggle them,
Mm-hmm.
and great. But they just could not actually have Superman go to war and save the day while, people's fathers and brothers and whatever are fighting and dying in actual war. So it
Yeah,
was and the thing about Berchtesgaden is also, uh, that's kind of addressing it too, because he could just fly in, and there was that famous.
that's where Hitler was, right? Or that's where he
Yes,
would
that
hang
that
out
was his
occasionally. Yeah,
secret base,
right.
that everyone
Yeah.
knew about. So it's not really secret, but it was his HQ. But there was the famous Superman story that wasn't in the comics; it was in the newspapers, and it was because DC felt like we should address it. How would Superman win the war? And it was done in two colors, because it was just black and white, but with, like, I think they had red or blue, but just one color. And the whole thing was Superman flies to a fictional version of Germany, pulls a fictional Hitler out with a different name. Then he flies to Italy, a fictional Italy, and grabs a fictional Mussolini, and brings them to an international court and says, "You guys cut it out." Essentially, and it's like he captures them and says, "You're just little men. You need to work out whatever is going on and stop doing this." And they go, "Okay, we're afraid of you, Superman." And it's basically Superman how he would win the war is getting Hitler and Mussolini, capturing them, and saying, it's easy for you guys to push guys, armies around, but you're scared. You're just little men, and I'm Superman. And they're like, you're right. We're awfully sorry. It is literally like 3-year-old logic, but
Yeah,
they did
yeah,
address it. I do love that. It's like, you guys cut it out.
right.
Yes, Superman.
And it makes me feel bad for Chris Reeve. I mean, it would feel bad for him anyway, having made Superman 4 after he was he was so disappointed in what happened with Superman 3 that they had to kind of coax him back. And one of the conditions, I think, was that he gets to contribute ideas for the script.
Right.
Right. And I think it was his idea for the nuclear weapons to be an issue, having the kid write to him.
He wanted it to have real world, timely weight to the storyline and be socially aware, which is very daring, actually, and great. It is also a simple idea of, well, Superman just says nuclear weapons are going. I don't care who has them. US, everybody. So he grabs all of them and whisks them off into space, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then but scenes, and again, that's simple. It's simplistic, but it's well-meaning, because you remember being a kid in the 80s, how big the new Cold War was, and how afraid we were of nuclear war at any moment. And we watched stuff like The Day After, stuff like that, these TV movies about post-apocalyptic life and how terrible it'll be. And so the idea of Superman just standing up and going, no one should have this kind of stuff, so I'm getting rid of it. And then, but scenes of Superman talking to the UN, I'm just a sucker for that shit. It's like, hey, everybody, I'm everybody's friend, Superman, and they're going, oh, it's an American plot. He's like, no, this was all my idea. No one told anyone. I wanted to do this to make everyone safer.
Yeah.
But then Canon Films also said, we're only going to give you $25 to shoot this movie. So the UN set is something we borrowed. We only have enough money for 15 extras. And by the way, your costume is going to look green through the whole movie because we can't even afford blue screen. You're going to do green screen. It's going to be real cheap. You're going to see that black silhouette around you every time you fly because the compromises he was forced to make. Yeah, they gave him money to woo him back, but then they shortchanged everything else to where it looks so cheap.
Yeah.
But again, we also have Lenny Luthor and we have Nuclear Man. There's a lot going on in that movie that I'm not a big fan of.
Oh, shit, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I saw some deleted scenes from Superman 4 on YouTube that I'd never seen before, and it's funny to say. There's a couple of scenes with the kid who writes in the letter that they cut out, which that was, and he goes and visits the kid actually in his classroom at school, and that was kind of, the kid was terrible acting. I'm sorry, they picked a terrible actor to play that part, but it was a
weirdly
sweet scene.
enough, that kid was then put in cryogenic freeze and then thawed out for the prequels. That was Jake Lloyd. Yippee!
And they did,
it's Superman. Yippee!
And then there was also Nuclear Man. The blonde dude was not. There was a first. They tried it twice, and the first one was like a doofus.
Yeah.
Who was looked like somebody off of Hee Haw. Was just like every time he'd fly, he'd do this.
Yeah.
It was so. And apparently they took that scene out after really bad test training.
It didn't test so well, I guess.
Who would have thought?
I mean, if their idea is that, and one thing I don't understand is the idea is, Nuclear Man is essentially a bizarro idea. It's, Luthor has created a duplicate of Superman to fight him. So why didn't they just go with Bizarro instead of Nuclear Man? And they could have had a doofus, but it could have been Christopher Reeve playing another double role where he's playing Bizarro, which would have been awesome. Yes. Christopher Reeve playing an adultish Superman and saying, "Me love you, Superman," and while he hits him.
It would have been really cool. There's that. Obviously, that's where that movie should have gone. Instead of that weird made up thing. And then similarly with Superman 3, the best part of that is that I think I like that big supercomputer, which is goofy. It's so so Kurt Swan age of Superman. The whole idea. But why didn't they just do Brainiac if that's what they wanted to do? I mean, come on.
And Brainiac, literally. I mean, I know that. I guess you would have to shell out for, a spaceship kind of thing, but mostly Brainiac is just a green dude with some electrodes on his head. It's like, dude, that's easy.
Yeah.
I cosplay as Brainiac every weekend. No big deal. There's still a little green paint behind my ear, because it's easy to do.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Nah, they blew that. Whatever.
So
3 and 4 are painful to watch. Yeah, that's where our name comes from. It's from the Nabokov poem, Prodigious Sap. Basically, him saying Superman's got. I'm telling you.
Yeah. So, and it was funny because right before I'd sent you that stuff, I was walking around, just mulling this over in my head, and I thought, Saps? I guess we could be plural. I bet you Brendan's going to recommend we change it to plural. And that's the first thing you said.
Well, we should be the Prodigious Saps because then it's a play on words. And we are, while we're admitting how nerdy we are with every sentence we speak on this podcast.
That's why we're here.
That is why we're here. And I've seen some of the responses. I rarely go on social media. And I know that you're promoting this primarily through Facebook. So every now and then I go on there because the email says, Chad mentioned you on Facebook. I was like, what did Chad say? And then I log in, and it's like, oh, it's about the podcast. But people are saying like, good on you guys and my brother has commented. Yeah. By the way, one of the things he texted me last night and said, listen to the new episode of your podcast. I have notes.
Yeah, he did leave that comment. What is he?
He didn't follow up with any notes. It was just him being a dick, which is the default mode. But listen to the new episode of your podcast. I have notes. And I guess the new episode would have been the 20-minute version where you dropped out, Werewolf by Night. Or have you posted that yet?
I didn't. Well, yeah, that was all I was able to salvage from that
Yeah,
that
I
attempt.
figured. That's
It was
okay.
funny. I was kind of surprised that survived because you actually see you reacting at the end because it was like the 10th time that my
I
my
know,
computer
and it
had
was just like,
failed.
oh, he's gone again. He's gone, and nothing's weirder than realizing you're just talking to
To
yourself.
nobody. Yeah.
Yeah, your little mic's up, and there's a black screen. You're like going, hello, hello, shit. Anyway,
Yeah.
guess what I was watching earlier this week, Chad?
Greatest American Hero.
Yeah, I was. I realized that in my box set, I had only gotten to the end of season 1 before I ended up watching something else. So I started season 2.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what I was watching this week. Some season 2.
Cool.
That show. It's an odd bird.
It
And I know
is.
that you want to talk about it because it does, of course, bump up against the stuff we love. And I do love it. I watch it now, and like anything that's of its period, because I've been watching a lot of retro stuff too. I've been watching a lot of, last year was a Columbo rewatch of the entire Columbo, and this year I've been watching a lot of Rockford Files, great stuff. So I've been doing a lot of
Wow.
70s TV. Yeah.
Cool.
And 80s I hadn't really dived into too much, but it's such a treat, and it brings it all back where I was waiting to watch that every week, was so upset when it went away. And I watch it now, and it's very 80s, but its strengths still there. Its strengths are the casting and the
Yes.
concept. It's like you get two great people anchoring that show, and their interplay, it's all about their chemistry. And
Absolutely.
because the plots, literally they just took plots from like old $6 Million Man episodes, and because they're very stock, like terrorist organization has nuclear bomb plans, you got to go in there, Ralph, and get them back. The plots, who cares?
Yeah.
And we know that in every episode he's going to fly badly. Whoa, whoa, whoa! The
Yeah.
thing is really just about Ralph and Bill Maxwell.
Yeah.
I just want to see them talk.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I mean, I love William Cat as well, but I don't think we'd be talking about this show today, or anybody would really, if it wasn't for Robert Culp.
Oh man.
He tied that whole thing together so well because he just sold it. He was just both of them did. William Cat was completely committed to his role as well. But
Yes. Yeah. It really is about the two of them bouncing off each other. And William Cat is fine. He is mostly great as and this was even at the time, weirdly, Bill Maxwell, you seem to think that he is representative of the 80s culture, but he was mocking it already. He was meant to be a parody of that hawkish American military personality.
just a bit
And so
misogynist as
yeah,
well.
and in a goofy way, to the point where you're like, oh no, they're not. He's not meant to be taken seriously. What does
Mhm.
matter is he is a good guy who wants to do good, but he is caught up in macho jargon of, I'm a secret agent guy, and I work with, and I ain't gonna take nothing from no commies, and he's anti-commie this, anti-commie that. And William Cat as Hinckley is basically, he's us. He's everyman guy who's left leaning, good hearted. And so you need him because anyone else who gets that suit, and obviously the little green guys gave him the suit because they
Mhm.
knew he could be trusted with it. Like, because you get scenes where Bill's going, I should have been the guy getting the suit. I would know what to do with it. And Hinkle's like going, yeah, Bill, that would have been a terrible idea. And it's true, because he would have like literally flown to Russia and just like,
Yeah. Right.
crashed in the Kremlin or whatever. But so it is that thing. It's basically a hawk and a dove. It's an everyman hero story, which I always fucking love. And
Mhm.
just like we talk about, we like the good guys. We like,
Yeah.
and he is a mild mannered guy that even Bill comes to respect, because yeah, he's got his back. And they form
Yeah.
this like good tight bond by like second season, third season. They're buddies. I love
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
and
And
Bob called, oh, here's where I make you jealous. I saw him live once. Me and my
Ooh.
brother, when I lived in LA, Robin got all excited because they were going to do a screening at the Egyptian Theater, which is one of the nice ones where they do like repertory or old, films. And it was Hickey and Boggs, which I was only vaguely aware of. But he's like, you don't understand. Hickey and Boggs, the only film that Bob Culp ever directed, and he stars in it with his buddy Bill Cosby, who's totally not problematic. At this point, Bill Cosby we had no idea.
Yeah, we know.
So post them doing I Spy in the 1970s, they did a buddy detective movie, which is a lot more adult than what they did on TV. And it's great, actually. And Bob Culp did direct the hell out of it. So we went to go see it because Bob Culp was there for a Q&A after it. And the thing that I
Oh,
love
cool.
about it is like, I don't think, no, me and my brother didn't raise our hands. We didn't ask any questions. We just watched, and he was great. Very exactly what you'd expect. Pulled back in the chair, mic up to here, like lazily this, and he refers to himself in the third person, or did, R.I.P.
Oh, wow.
But not in, again, you still love the guy. He doesn't come across as ego, but he's like going, I just remember asking myself, what is Bob Culp going to do with the scene here? He's like, and he goes, that's not the way Bob Culp works. He was saying stuff about Bob Culp. Bob Culp does it. And I remember asking myself, what does Bob Culp want on his burger? Does Bob Culp
Right.
want the tomatoes and the onions? Bob Culp does. It was great.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that is my thesis on Greatest American Hero. It's of its time. I don't know if it's really all that appealing to people now if they're not,
Yeah, I think it's funny because it's something that's been, there's aspects of it. I was thinking about this last night. There's aspects of it that I've seen, and obviously there's a little touch of Green Lantern in there, which there was just from the get go, where you have an alien giving somebody's. That's very kind of oblique because it doesn't. That's where the similarities end between those two things. But I was thinking about Spider-Man No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, is that the one? Not No Way Home. What was the first one?
Far From Home?
Far From Home.
The first one was Homecoming.
Homecoming, where he gets the Iron Spider suit for the first time.
Yeah.
Right? And
he gets a Tony Stark designed suit.
Right. Where instead of Ralph Hinckley, you have you have Peter Parker. And instead of an alien spaceship, you have Tony Stark.
And for the whole movie, he keeps discovering it does different things. He's got the AI in it, and he's like going, wait a minute. And she goes, kill mode activated. He's like, no, kill mode. No kill mode.
Yeah.
So like
a little touch of Greatest American Hero humor there that I didn't think about at the time. That I wonder if they were thinking about that when they did that whole bit.
Well, but, I mean, it's like anyone stepping into an Iron Man suit of armor. Also, it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing in here. And what does this do? What's this button do? But that is an appeal to it. And I was thinking about when I was watching it, how weirdly unlikely that show was to take off. It does feel like a Stephen J. Cannell show because he created it and he was the mark of quality, but not artistry. He knew how to pitch a show and it would last a good long while. And most of his stuff were cop shows or detective shows and stuff like that. And he has a good feel for it. This was just him doing the same thing with a lighter touch, as in some comedy. Because didn't he also do like 10 Speed and Brown Shoe, like back in the day with I used to watch that. Ben Vereen and Jeff Goldblum. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, in other words, he was capable of doing lighter stuff where it's got a comedy edge to it. But the idea of it being a guy with superpowers, it actually harkens back to this you don't remember. And I've only seen like an episode apiece of these. This is 1960 stuff. When the Batman show was at the height of its influence, because it was only like 3 years worth of Batman, you had the knockoffs. You had Captain Nice. And you had, is that it? Captain Nice? Yeah. And then there was also one called, was it Mr. Terrific? But there's actually a DC character called Mr. Terrific. So I think that's not it. But they were superhero comedies where it was like dweebish guys who developed a potion or something, and now they're flying around. Captain Nice starred, believe it or not, William Daniels, who of course ended up being on Saint Elsewhere and the voice of Kit the car and all that.
Okay.
So this
Wow.
this is mid '60s wacky sitcoms with superheroes.
Yeah.
Like we're parodying it. The nice thing about Greatest American Heroes, they're not parodying it. They're doing it straight, but the comedy comes from the greatest idea they ever came up with is I lost the instruction manual. That is just a great take.
Especially for the time, especially for that era. And I was thinking about this because if they were to reboot it now, I'm not so sure that trope or that part of the premise
really you think that
quite as well.
The idea that he doesn't really know what he's doing.
I mean, people would understand it, I think, but I didn't think about this at the time that we have a world of superhero movies now where the so-called instruction booklet, like in Spider-Man, is built into the suit. And you still the propensity to screw up and not understand how it works is still there, but the instruction booklet is like in the suit with a heads-up display and stuff like that. So that is an aspect of the show that I love, just because it's so goofy that you've got this advanced civilization that's advanced enough to make this crazy suit that can imbue him with all these powers, but then it comes in this janky little case with this book that just falls out for no reason as he's walking away.
Oh, well, I think it's supposed to be like an automated box, and I think that the way he's holding it, he like pressed a button that he didn't realize, and it ejects the book. So it shouldn't have been like they didn't. It's like, oh, you know what? We should have put the thing inside of it. No, I think he accidentally pushes the button. I love that janky box, and I think wasn't there a fancy version of the DVD box set that came in a mock-up of the box?
Yeah.
I wish I had that.
That box reminds me of like the Atari like cartridge cases and stuff.
Yeah.
I had something at the time that kind of resembled that.
Yeah. Well, I'm jealous. I didn't have an Atari.
Oh, you didn't?
No, actually, my PS5, humble brag, is the only console I've ever owned. I've always been a PC gamer, just because when I was growing up, we were too poor to have like Atari or ColecoVision or Intellivision or Commodore 64. That was for the rich folk. I did a lot of game playing at friends' houses, is what I did.
Yeah. All right, get back. Jerry posted it was either a video or a picture of one of your script read-throughs for Tesla City. And you were wearing your Greatest American Hero t-shirt.
That was one of my happy.
I dig that shirt. And Jerry goes, yeah, he won't shut up about it.
When I go to a comic book convention, which has been, of course, less often the last few years, thanks to the pandemic. But I went to Rose City Comic Con here in Portland like 4 years ago. And I did put like, I can't spend more than this much, it's like, they're always so expensive. If I find a graphic novel I've been looking for, I'll go for it. And then I walked by like a t-shirt thing. I was like, oh, holy crap. I was like, Greatest American Hero. Well, I gotta have that. And when this is the embarrassing thing. I was like, talking to the guy, I was like, oh, this is great. And it's in my size. It's great. And he goes, yeah, that's the only size I ever make those in. He goes, because no offense, but most of the people who buy those, and I was like, okay, I get it.
Okay.
Fat nerds. Is that what you're saying? Fat nerds? And I think he was also implying, he goes, most younger fans, not that they aren't fat, but most younger fans don't even know what that is. So it's all middle-aged guys buying like the Greatest American Hero design. And I'm like, okay. And then I said, by the way, do you have any Electra Woman and Dyna Girl? Do you have any? Because I would be proud to wear some of that if you have that. Do you happen to have a t-shirt with Bigfoot and Wild Boy on it?
What? I don't remember
the
that
Croft
one.
Super Show. Those are those Saturday morning live action Saturday morning shows.
Yeah. But so, do you remember what obviously you were a fan of the show?
Yeah.
When you were a kid. Do you remember like how into it you were at the time, or was it a big deal?
I remember watching the pilot. there are some shows that work for me from the get-go that weirdly I like when I watched the not Blue Velvet, when I watched the Twin Peaks pilot, I know exactly where I was, what I was doing, and how blown away I was. Now, of course, that's years later, but it's weird that you watch the first episode of a show and you go, holy crap, my life has changed. Greatest American Hero wasn't quite that, but I can completely remember watching it. And I remember the whole thing with the flying saucer and the box and the suit and the first flying scene. And then when he has to show up at that restaurant where his would-be in-laws are, and he does it. He's like, "Oh God, I'm in the suit," and he pretends that he's an actor in a play, and it's wacky. So yeah, no, I watched it every week. I didn't sit there and write fan fiction about Ralph Hinckley, or I might have drawn him in a notebook. Actually, maybe.
I had my own version because I was at the time I would be writing these. They weren't exactly comics; they were more like picture stories, and I would have a legal notepad, and that one whole page would be a panel, and I'd write stories. So every time there was something that came out that really sparked my imagination, I would go home and I'd write my own version of it. So when Star Wars came out, there was Moon Wars. When Superman came out, I had Super Dog. What else? And then my dog Jen was always the star of these shows. Although I always made her male in the stories, which irritated my mom. It's like, she's female.
We'll be. That's maybe something you need to talk to someone much more qualified than me about.
I didn't respect my dog's pronouns. Anyway, but when the Greatest American Hero came out, I did Greatest American Heroes, where instead of Ralph Hinckley, it was me and my dog both got suits.
Perfect.
But this shows, just to give you an example of how active my imagination was, because at the time after having seen Superman, I used to literally pray to God as a kid that he would give me the powers of Superman. And then when Greatest American Hero came out, I was like, of course, that's how it's going to happen. Aliens, that totally makes sense. Aliens can do anything. God,
it'll be aliens dropping me a suit.
Right. And aliens obviously exist. I mean, come on.
Yes.
So this is totally plausible. So I was a nutty little dorky kid, and I would literally, coming home from school, I was a latchkey kid for a while there.
Yeah.
Right around the time the show was out. So I'd come home and I'd be walking up the driveway, and I'd look around to see if anybody was walking or watching me. And I'd take 1, 2, 3, jump, just to check.
I'm only laughing because, I did pretty much exactly the same thing. I will say what's weird is that it wasn't really, even before Superman. I mean, just the thing that, since I had the older brother, before the movie came out, I was already reading comics and having them read to me, and superheroes in general. And Superman was always my favorite. The thing I as a kid, I never wanted to be a copy of them, just because I figured that's their thing. It's like, yeah, I don't want his powers because he's got them. And so as a kid, I used to, and I was also weird, where it would be something that I liked is what I wanted my power to be. And so I wanted to, it also ties in with my horror love. When I was a kid, I wanted to be able to turn into like an anthropomorphic bear, like a bear man, and have like the power and the strength of a bear and the fur and all that. So like a werebear, but a good guy. And also as a kid, I wanted lightning powers real bad. I didn't combine the two because that would have been weird. And I had rules about that stuff even then. I would not have been a lightning casting werebear. It was either I'm a werebear or I've got lightning powers. I love the idea of electrical powers. And I got terribly shocked once at our family camper. This is like when this is pre-Greatest American Hero, but anyway. And there was a short in the electrical system of our pop-up camper, and I happened to be holding on to the door when they plugged it in, which meant I was electrocuted to the extent where, it's like, oh, that smell is my flesh burning, that kind of thing. God. And I couldn't let go because you have no control over your muscles. It just clamps. And my dad tackled me to the ground. I was
I
okay.
think I remember you telling me this story now.
Yes,
This
and
rings a bell.
then for literally like months after this, I was maybe 6 or 7. I was walking around pointing at things, waiting for lightning to come out of my. I was like, that gave me powers. I thought
that was the
my.
moment.
I thought that was my origin. So I was like going, nothing.
Yeah.
But I was the same way. And with Greatest American Hero, it is just wish fulfillment, and the idea I do think is so likable, so doable. And I do like the fact that they cast a guy who is fit, but he's a skinny little dude. And so it just underscores everything. It's like, yeah, he isn't, Christopher Reeve all bulked out for Superman. And the idea of the everyman hero, he was great. And then they just kept every now and then they're like, now he can shrink. He could have always done that. He just didn't know he could. Now he's invisible. Yep. He was popping in and out. He had X-ray vision. He had all kinds of powers.
It was always things that would be very cheap to do, like obviously invisibility. Although the first time they did it, I was watching the episode where he discovers that power by accident, and it was kind of cool that you see that when he sits down in the car, they have the seat kind of depressed, like they really put a lot of effort to it in that first season. But it was funny to me. It's one of the things that's hilarious about the show is the very creative ways they would try to figure out to not have to do the flying effect.
Yeah.
So I don't want to fly. I'm going to get on a bus. I'm still traumatized by these flying attempts.
That was an interesting thing, is that the whole thing is like, it's an old joke that gets old pretty quick, but the whole thing, like, gotta work on those landings. And him being like weirdly traumatized by his attempts of flying. So he would like, can't we do anything else? Is like, no. And I just watched one from season 2 where it's like, sorry, buddy, you're gonna have to pick me up and fly me. I hate it. I know you hate it, but there's the only way we're getting there. He's like, okay, Bill. Okay, here we go. And he's like, he's watch your hands. And then he's like flying, and then it's the two of them. Whoa! Bad blue screen and all that. I think the main problems with that show are its grounding in the 80s. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's so of its time. And of course, the TV budget. I think as a concept and as characters, it could be rebooted. It is a good premise. I also, in that same episode, liked, because I'd forgotten that the aliens would occasionally show back up and try to communicate with him to like give him, this was about like a nuclear threat that was going to destroy the world. So the aliens are communicating with him through the car radio. That's how they do it. It's like,
I love that.
It was a great idea where it would pick up random dialogue and songs, which are a message. And I was like, oh, that's great.
That'd be how they would have to do it back then, unless they just, I guess they could have, taken over the radio and just broadcast it.
Maybe so. Why are you guys being so cryptic, you freaking aliens? And I think the most unrealistic thing in that show is not the suit, not the powers, not the aliens. The most unrealistic thing in that show is an entire high school class full of 34-year-olds. I think
who all have New York accents for some strange reason.
Who all have New York accents.
In LA.
I mean, they're clearly trying to make them like sweat hogs, like, from
Mr. H. Yeah.
And you're like, and Michael Paré is in there, and he went on to do things. And you had Faye Grant; she went on to be in V. And she did other stuff. But I'm sitting there going, it must have been terrible for them. I'm sure they were happy they had a paycheck, but to pretend for 3 seasons that you're 18 years old when you're clearly 34.
That was like a thing back then, though, wasn't it? I mean,
well, in every show, whenever you see high schoolers, they're always at least 22, at least. And then they're usually even older than that. But it was just like, Mr. H, why didn't you tell us you were going to be a baseball pitcher for the California Angels? And he's like going, because I'm only going to be a pitcher for this one episode. That's why. And I'm wearing the suit. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
The chemistry between them, and that was the cool thing was the chemistry that he had with that, particularly Michael Parré's character.
And I related to that because my mom taught remedial English. She, as a high school teacher, she taught the people who got to be seniors who needed that extra help. So like this is like her class. Yeah. And I like that he is so nice, so cool, and he's nerdy, but they all end up liking him anyway, and they start trying to be better because he's cool. And they're like, all right, maybe I'll read some of the Shakespeare. I don't know, Mr.
Right.
H.
Well, I like that scene where I think it's in the first episode actually, where Michael Perry, I can't remember his character's name.
Yeah, they're all
his girlfriend. They're kind of on the rocks, and she's been flirting with
they
Ralph.
tried to go kind of mature in that first few episodes before they gave up and turned them into the sweat hogs. Yeah.
But right. But there's that scene where Ralph is talking to him going, look, no, she likes me because I treat her with respect.
Yeah.
Why don't you try that? You know? And
yeah.
Like, that was great. You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's very decent writing. They were, I think at the beginning, I do think that it was Cannell saying, why don't we not make it so cartoony and have real weight to some of these relationships? And then they gave up on that.
Yeah.
Second season, I think Connie Selica might have been pregnant at some point, because all the episodes I see, he's always just on the phone talking to her, and she's in a car, or she's like, yeah, I'm still in San Francisco. And I'm like, either she was having a contract dispute where she wanted more money, or she was pregnant. Because I was like, why isn't she in the same scene with him ever?
In the first pilot, and I totally did not remember this, but there's a really nice reference to Superman, dialogue reference to Superman, the movie.
What was it?
Where it's right after he puts his suit on for the first time, and the cops take him to a hospital, and they're trying to commit him to a psychiatric ward.
Yeah,
and they wheel him past these two guys with injuries waiting in the emergency room, and he as he's being wheeled past him in the wheelchair, he turns and looks at them and says, "I'm not crazy, I swear." And one of them looks at him and goes, "That's a bad outfit, Jim."
Really?
And I went, "What? Yes!" That was so very nice. I haven't
seen that in so
very
long.
Subtle little touch.
And I jumped over to season 2 when I was watching it recently. Yeah, that's great. That's a bad outfit, Jim.
But they did that was one thing that they. I like that they did. They played up the fact that the suit looks ridiculous, and that was kind of the whole point.
Yeah,
I love reading about this. That Stephen J. Cannell didn't refused to show William Katt the suit until the day shooting. He's like, so when do I get to see the suit? When the suit? They're still working on it, but you'll love it. You'll love it. You'll see.
That's so great.
He was like, oh god. So that was he wanted part of that reaction. You know,
when he pulls it out of the box for the first time, and he's looking at it going, oh.
What?
Oh.
But he hated wearing the suit.
I think that, of course, I think the design is actually very good for that. Like, you can almost take it seriously, and you can't quite. And they purposely made it dorky. It looks like literally long johns because it's full red all the way down. It has that little skirt, which is so weird. No superhero has had a little skirt.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But the belt is there, and instead of it having the underoos type thing, instead it's got this little skirtlet, and you're like, what? And it's got little booties, and you're like, this is awkward for anyone to pull that off. But I do love it for that reason. Have you ever? There was a graphic novel. I'm always here to give you graphic novel recommendations.
Yes,
this one This one's an independent one from 2007. I actually looked this up while we were talking. And I have it somewhere in here, and it's called Truth, Justin, and the American Way. And it's like a pastiche, a fan fiction pastiche. It is set in the 80s, and it's about a video store loser guy who ends up getting a super suit, which is goofy looking, and suddenly has powers, and then there are evil agents after him. And it's a complete and total tribute to Greatest American Hero.
Nice.
It's comedy, and it's the guy who did, I don't know if what's this guy's name? Oh, Scott Kurtz. He's the guy who did a very famous web comic for a long time, PvP. Anyway, so he obviously is a fan of that stuff. The art is cartoony and wacky, but it really does hit the spot. And there is an FBI agent guy who's very much like Bill Maxwell.
Wow.
It's
cool.
It's great. It's like if someone said, "Could I have the rights, please, to Greatest American Hero?" And they said no, and he's like, "Well, I'll make my own. Yeah. I'll make my own, and you'll see." It's fun. So that's a recommendation. And I think this could be rebooted. As I've said, I think you could take the same thing and bring it into the modern day and keep it light, keep it funny. You got to come up with new villains. Well, I guess you don't. Putin is he's brought us back to the 80s. He's
Yeah.
apparently as nostalgic as we are, Chad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, we can't say enough about the theme song.
Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah. I'm sure. I think we talked about this. I'm sure we talked about this before. But I went out and bought that 45.
Did you? I didn't know that.
Out, yeah, when I was a kid, I love that song so much. I wish I knew where that 45 was. It's one of the only. I didn't buy a whole lot of 45 singles. That was one of them.
I mean, I have it on. I think because I've always loved compilation discs, and discs because I'm old. But I used to love those series that were like from Rhino Records, where there would be like all the top 40 stuff from the 70s, all the top 40 stuff from the 80s. So I don't have anything else that guy ever did, but I have that. It was like for its year, it went to number one.
It was huge. Yeah. I love that song. I used to get teased mercilessly at school.
Of course. I mean, it is light rock, feel good nonsense, but it did sum up the show very well. And I think that's also something that Stephen J. Cannell has always been good at. He gets, he finds the right feel for that kind of stuff because his shows always have really good themes.
Right. That was Mike Post, I think.
Mike Post. Look at what's happened to me. Yes. I can't believe it myself. I did that at karaoke once, and
did you?
It really did. Yeah, and it really did show me who the old people in the audience were.
But Mike Post, of course, he wrote Hill Street Blues, and then later he did Quantum Leap, which is I was thinking about this recently because there's that reboot show.
He did Rockford Files.
And Rockford Files.
Because I've been watching that.
So mostly like cop and law themed shows like that. So it cracks me up that thinking about the Quantum Leap theme, I was like thinking about the pitch meeting for that or whatever. The producer going, okay, so Mike, it's a science fiction show about a guy who travels through time, takes over other people's bodies, and probably never finds his way home. And Mike Post was like, okay, yeah. Perfect. Like, what? I never really thought about that before. It was like when I went back and listened to that theme. How does that theme go? I was like, yeah, it sounds like a comedy, like a cop comedy.
It actually sounds very similar to, is this also Mike Post? It sounds very, in a way, it sounds like the Doogie Howser theme, which was also from like around the same time.
Which had like a computer kind of theme.
Yeah, computer, but kind of just like this little jaunty little tune. And you're like going, and that fits Doogie Howser pretty well. But yeah, Quantum Leap, you're like, I mean, again, it's light science fiction. They're not going for anything hard. No, it's not bad. No. You're right. It is kind of like it's
so funny how out of
a toss off melody. Yeah, exactly.
But of course, it didn't matter. Yeah,
didn't matter because you know what? People got paid.
Yeah,
people got paid. Yo,
have you seen any of this new Quantum Leap?
I have not yet. No.
Okay, I've only seen a couple episodes.
My friend John he's watched a couple, and again, though he is a youngster, he is more than familiar. He loves him some Scott Bakula, everyone's favorite vampire.
Right.
Count Bakula. Have you been watching, or did you ever watch What We Do in the Shadows?
No, I've heard of it.
Oh God, it's so fucking funny. And at one point, the vampires in it, they're trying to invite all these celebrity vampires to the opening of this thing, and they're actually on a computer, Zoom chatting with Scott Bakula, and he's like going, I'm sorry, guys, I'm not a vampire.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it is good. And it's a dumb joke, but I still laughed. But so yeah, no, he says that his main problem with it is he's tired of, like in a lot of the superhero shows now, it's no longer a guy and his Commissioner Gordon or something. It's always a team Arrow. Like Green Arrow has all these people who know and they're working with him. Team Flash. And so he said Quantum Leap, he goes, now it's a whole bunch of time travelers. Now there's like a whole team helping him find his way home. He goes, yeah, well, I just miss the days when it was just Al. Al was just like looking out for Sam and going, yeah, hey buddy, how you doing? And now it's multiple characters.
And you very rarely ever saw the future, the present day from which he came. And it was, I kind of like that about the original show, that because he initially has amnesia, just like the new character does. And you're kind of just as confused as he is, but this hologram guy wearing garish clothes.
And talk about another show that, okay, the concept is great, but that would not have gone anywhere if you did not cast that right. And it's about the chemistry. I mean, if you get Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell, and it's just perfect how great they bounced off each other.
Exactly.
Scott Bakula, similar to Harrison Ford. I like human heroes to where they get stumped, because I always loved the oh boy thing where you had Sam Beckett always going like, oh, woo, and having to think on his feet. Just like with Indiana Jones, he is the smartest guy in the room, but I love the way Indiana Jones is like, oh shit, oh no, and they gets punched, and he's like, oh man, I love that, because the guys who are Schwarzenegger and that can just take all that punishment and just keep coming, I'm like, yeah, that's great in a comic book way, but I always love the guys who are like going, oh my god, I just lost a tooth, which is also why I like John McClane in the first Die Hard is one of the best. He is so human and running across the broken glass and bare feet and stuff. I'm like, damn. And then by the fourth movie or whatever, he's fucking Superman at that point. He's literally jumping motorcycles into helicopters.
Right.
Fuck off, man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I was going to mention, I don't think I'd ever seen those episodes, going back to Greatest American Hero for a second. It was in the last season we finally get to actually see the aliens. Finally,
I don't remember what they look like.
They look like Ferengis. This is the weirdest thing.
Oh, really?
This is about 4 years before Star Trek Next Generation, and they look like blue Ferengis or green Ferengis. Yeah, and
they actually are green. After Bill spends the whole time going, little green guys, little green guys,
right? And that's kind of where the show started jumping the shark a little bit, because it was a neat idea, but they just did not have the budget to do the effects well. They tried really hard, but it's just
will also say,
whoa, what's going on here?
This is true of a lot of 80s and 70s TV, because I've talked about this with John too. People today, and it still backfires, but people today are luckier, or people growing up with, because TV is so amazing. A lot of TV now has, they've got a roadmap. They at least know a story they are going to tell. Everything that was done back then was wide open. Like they didn't expect anyone to remember what had happened the week before, because things were not available on VHS to rewatch. Maybe they'd have reruns, but that could be 2 years from then. So in other words, they didn't have to worry too much about continuity. Every episode could start over. It'd be the exact same plot. You could even recast the same actors as different characters later in like another season, because no one would remember, hey, wasn't that the killer postman in that earlier episode? So with Greatest American Hero, something this big in genre, it would have been great if they had a roadmap where they're like going, at this point, it ends up with him getting the book. He does talk to the aliens and things change, instead of now just reset. Now just go back to the beginning, and he's still clumsy. Here's my question for you, because I see our time is running out. But did you ever see the second pilot when William Catt left?
I've only seen little bits of it, and I was going to ask if that. I'm assuming that's on. It's
on the box set. Yeah,
and I can't find it online.
I remember not watching it on broadcast. I think they did air it, but I saw it weirdly like on a Saturday afternoon on TV, like it was a TV movie, and they just put it on.
Oh, wow.
Called Greatest American Heroine.
Right.
And it's just dumb. I mean, you've got Culp doing his best, and he's Bill Maxwell again, but the suit has been passed to a young woman who's not a teacher. But is there something about the aliens who will only go with people with blonde curly hair?
Blonde, yeah.
They literally just recast, and she's a nice looking actress. I don't think she went on to anything really. She's not great. She's certainly not as affable and likable as our Ralph Hinckley. But I'm sitting there going, it's just painful because you have Maxwell going like, so I guess this I've been down this road before. Got to get you trained in the suit and going to turn you into an asset for the government. And she's like, well, I don't know if I want to be a superheroine. I mean, it's the same suit. It's just now there's boobs.
Right.
That was the tagline. I remember that. Same suit, new boobs. It's not good, and you can definitely see why the network did not pick up. Like, okay, let's keep going with this.
Yeah, we're done here.
we are done. Let's wrap this up. We are donezo.
And did you get the? I've heard it's not great, but the 3-issue comic run that was done that William Cat was involved in. Did you know?
Don't
about
even
that?
know from.
Yeah. Well, apparently it just didn't do very well. Just like every attempt they've had to try to reignite this idea has fallen flat. And the most recent, there was that comic that apparently William Cat collaborated with somebody to do the story. And the complaint I heard was,
do you know what publisher?
No, I forget now. I'm sure it's easily found online, but
I'm sure you can get it cheap.
There was a guy on YouTube who reviews it. Yeah. He says it's just kind of disappointing because it takes way too long to get around to the part with the suit and the actual Greatest American Hero stuff. There's a lot of buildup of the characters before that.
A lot of scenes in the classroom.
I think they were intending it to go a lot longer than 3 issues, and they, similar to the pilot, it just fell flat. And then there was an attempt to completely reboot it, and it was announced like in 2014 or 15 with another female character.
Produced?
No, I don't think it ever got that far, and it just fell apart. So
I'm looking it up now as far as the comic.
I really want to get my hands on it because I'm just curious.
Arcana Studio, which is a pretty small imprint, but yeah, it was 2009 and they did 3 issues. Wow, I had no idea. But writers William Cat and then like 3 other guys.
Yeah,
I assume the rights to Greatest American Hero are still with I don't know, the Cannell estate or whatever.
I would imagine, yeah.
Whatever studio it was that made the show.
Yeah.
I think it could be repitched, redone. Again, they just need to call me. At one point when I was, because when I was writing screenplays on spec a lot, I didn't really worry about rights because I just wanted to write my version of things. Like I wrote a Green Lantern script in 1990.
Remember that? Remember who we fan cast as
I wanted
Hal
Dennis
Jordan?
Quaid.
Oh, that's right.
Back in 1990, I wanted
Scott
Dennis
Bakula
Quaid.
was who I recommended to you.
Yes, and he would have been a great choice because back then either one of them had the right quality. With Quaid, I liked the idea of him being, because I'd also seen the right stuff. I was like, yeah, a cocky pilot. And
yeah, that did make sense.
Quaid's a handsome dude, but it doesn't matter. So at one point I wanted to do and started having ideas about rebooting a movie that I don't know if you recall, and that is a Hero at Large with John Ritter. Remember that?
Yeah, John Ritter. Yes.
And it's a rom-com. It's actually trying to be, and this is from like 1980 or 81. It's trying to be like a Frank Capra-esque rom-com, but with a guy in a super suit. But he's not. It's non-powered. It's completely not a thing. It's just he is wearing a promotional superhero suit when he stops a robbery, and then New York believes that someone's out there pretending to be Captain Avenger, the fictional character, and then he sees how much people are in love with it, and it makes the city feel good, and he felt good doing it, so he starts trying to be a real hero, and then of course it goes bad. He gets shot at one point. But I kept thinking, I love this concept, and it's very 1970s, early 1980s, but you just take the same concept and just update it and keep it a romantic comedy. Don't make it too grim. But I was like, I could do that. And again, the rational part of my brain took over and said, stop, Brendan, stop. No one is asking for a reboot of a movie that didn't do that well, and that was on HBO all the time.
I do remember that. I think I saw it at least once.
Another thing where I make you jealous of the amazing life I've lived, man, this sunlight's killing me, is in LA. I ended up doing just once. I was called for jury duty when I lived in LA. And when I went there and had to plead, I can't do jury duty. I can't afford to live on $10 a day. And they let me go. But the other person, not the only other person, but one of the people that was in my group was Ann Archer, the actress Ann Archer, who was the female star of Hero at Large. And John Ritter had just died like the year before. And I went up to her at our lunch break because they like, okay, and and I said, Ms. Archer, I don't want to bother you. So it's like, fan, I've seen a lot of your movies and you're great. And she was like, well, thank you very much. It's very sweet. And I was like, and I really loved Hero at Large. And she goes, wow, no one ever brings that one up. She's expecting someone to say Patriot Games or something. And I'm like going, I really liked Hero at Large. And she goes, no, thank you very much. And I said, it's a shame about John Ritter passing. And she goes, he was a lovely man. I was like, yeah. And I told her how I got to meet him when I was like 6 years old. And she goes, wow. And then I said, and now I'll leave you to your box lunch, and walked away.
Right.
We got real tight after that. It was like she'd call me over, we'd braid each other's hair and talk about boys. We became really good friends. No, but I did like that I got to I never got to meet John Ritter post being 6 years old, so I couldn't tell him how much I loved Hero at Large. But the fact I got to say to Ann Archer, like, I love that movie. I know it wasn't a big hit, but I'm a comic nerd.
Cool.
And she said, I can tell, because I was wearing probably a Batman shirt or something. Oh, those are the days.
Well, cool. Yeah. Do you need to leave now, or is
Unfortunately, I kind of do, because our good friend Jerry Chrisman will be rattling my door soon, and I have to hide from these blinding rays of light. Yes. I'm glad this is recorded.
What's up with that?
God damn. That was what we call the sun going down. But this has been fun. More nostalgia, man. I don't need to watch any TV show created after 1985 anymore. What are we going to talk about next time?
I don't know. I suggested, She-Hulk completed its run recently.
Yeah, we should talk She-Hulk.
I'm really digging Andor. I think it'll be fun to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. All the nerd topics, and these will be actually fairly current. And I just watched the new Andor this morning. Oh, boy.
Yeah. So good.
That's some spicy meatballs.
Yeah.
Yes. That's inappropriate. Anyway, Chad, take care. Enjoy Texas. Tell all our fans to leave me alone, because I'm a private man.
Okay. They'll understand.
Bye.
Okay. See you, man.